We understand that every candle has 4 types of communication. From a macro level, 4 types of communication. Highest point at the top, lowest point at the bottom, open and close. Those are the 4 points of communication in every candle. And we're gonna go inside the candles for a second, man. We wanna just show y'all a little something we've been doing, something I feel like last week I got a lot of good feedback from the squad, from y'all. Right, so what we wanna do is just show y'all something. So here's a little candle psychology that we've been learning that, I want to kind of add to this show. So right here, we're gonna put our focus on this thing right here. It's called a Gravestone doji, right? A lot of times you will see this in the middle of a uptrend, and it can be about a 80% chance that this is the sign of a reversal. If you look at this candle, if you look at the most important part of this candle, again, is the wick. So the wick would be considered like the tail, right? What that tells you is, like, when you look at this candle, what this saying is that you see it come from an uptrend, right? It comes from an uptrend. Now, this is actually a strong candle for you to see. So when you see this candle, it means that the buyers try to push that up, and you'll see this resistance level right here. You see that the buyers try to push this up, but the sellers rejected it. And so when the sellers rejected it, that pressure came down. Now, here's something that's important right here that is really good. Look where it opened at, right? Look where it opened at. Now remember, because you see this as a bearish candle, it opened here and closed here. This is really, really sweet for you to understand. So I want to go a little further so we can really get into it. Go further. So you'll see this uptrend take place, and that's why this candle is important, because it is, again, you'll see it in the middle of an uptrend, which is really good. And so what you want to start identifying on your journey is not just chart patterns, but you got to start understanding how candles communicate. There's a communication pattern inside of candles, right? And one of the things we got to get good at as we go is saying, what are the candles actually saying to us, right? What is the language, right? So it's good to see trends. It's good to understand support and resistance. But once you get a little deeper, you start to understand, hey, the candle is actually talking to me, right? And it's the real name for it is it's not a shooting star. The name for it is a gravestone doji. That is not a shooting star. It is called a gravestone doji. Go look it up. It's really important. Go look it up. It's really important. Talk to me, Sean.
What's the difference? Can you explain to people what's the difference?
The shooting star have a bigger body. Bigger body.
And when you say body, what do you mean?
Meaning, so again, I like that, Sean. I like the way you asked that question from that perspective. So here's the thing, y'all. Sean knows it. Right? Sean knows it, but what he wants me to do is give you more context, which is why I like that he's doing that. So this is the body. This is not a shooting star. The shooting star will have more body, meaning the body of it will be bigger than this. It can still be a red candle, but you had more intensity. This is almost an indecisive candle, but it's a bearish candle because of how long that wick is. Does that make sense? We understand that the body tells us, so the body is communicating to us, right? So we understand that every candle has 4 types of communication. From a macro level, 4 types of communication. Highest point at the top, lowest point at the bottom, open and close. Those are the 4 points of communication in every candle. But Trap, the candle also tells us different things. So like all 4 of these candles say something different. And the reason why we know it says something different is because of, one, the body size. So the body size tells us one thing, and then the wick tells us something else. Now, if we go a little bit deeper, the candle before it tells us something else. The candle after it gives us confirmation. So that's why we got to say to ourselves, how do candles communicate to us, right? So before we go into that gravestone doji, let's go to this candlestick psychology that's going to really help you. I should have called it candlestick communication, but that would have been it, Sean. So that's our new candlestick communication. All right, so in order for you to understand that one, let's talk about this right quick. Here's 4 candles, all red, and in your mind, because they're all red, you think, hey, these are all bearish candles. But they all actually communicate something different. You feel me? They all communicate something different. So this candle right here has 0 wick at all, which tells us that what? The sellers were dominant, meaning, talk to me, Sean.
Can you give prices? So, for example, like you see there's no wicks, right?
Goddamn, Sean, you want me on a whiteboard. Goddamn. All right, so let's talk right here. So let's say, so because it's a red candle, you understand that the open is at the top and the close is at the bottom. So that's another part of the communication that you got to understand. If it's a red candle, that means it opened here, it closed here. Here's the caveat to that. A red candle don't always have to start off red. It can start off green and turn red, which is called a color candle change. Right? So a red candle can start off green, but then turn red, and vice versa. A red candle can start off green and turn red. It depends on the time frame, because the time frame tells us what happened during that time frame that turned that candle from green to red. That's how we start understanding the communication within the candle. Is we trapping? All right. So because this a red candle, you know that it opened here and it closed here. So it may have opened at $70, it may close at $73. How do we know that? Because we see a full red candle. So that means if it opened here and we just giving this price up, if it opened here at $73 and then it closed at $70, means the bears pushed that price from 73, they just pushed it all the way down. Now watch this. Because it don't have no wicks on it, that means they were able to push it down with no resistance. That means they was able to kick that door in and they had no bars or nothing behind it. They kicked the door in and they had no type of resistance. Now, this tells us strong body, no wicks, sellers have full control, meaning it was a dominant fight. This next candle you see, it is almost similar, but what you see a wick at the top, you see a wick at the bottom. That tells us that there was some fight involved. That means somebody stepped in and said, hey, nah, y'all doing too much. So here's what happens. Because it's red, you know it started here, but it ended here, but somewhere along the fight, sellers pushed it up to this top of this wick, because this top of the wick tells us that's the high. The bottom of the wick tells us that's the low. Both of these mean rejections, meaning it got this high and then the sellers pushed it down. At some point, it got this low and the buyers pushed it up. That's the communication within the candle. Now, you can look at something called a candle tracker, and with the candle, you ain't know about that. You knew about that, Sean? All right, so what a candle tracker could do is the candle tracker could tell you exactly what is happening in real time. Meaning at 8:58, this did this, at 8:57, this did this, at 8:59, this did that. So you can see what's moving. Watch this. You can see the veins inside of the candle.
That was a good analogy. That was good.
Right? You can see the veins inside of the candle. But if not, you have to watch the candle and say, okay, at this point, the sellers pushed it down, the buyers rejected it here, they pushed it up here, and somewhere within this time frame, the candle is doing this. Some point, the buyers got it up, and then at this point, let's say this was $80. Let's say they rejected 80, and then let's say down here somewhere, let's say we'll just put a number out there, 78, right? They rejected 78, and it closed at 79. So if this a 1 hour candle, you watch this candle take 1 hour to form this. If it's a 15-minute candle, all of this happened in 15 minutes. If it's a 5-minute candle, they going crazy. Right? So that's what that means. All right, y'all with me right here? We trapping up, we trapping. All right? So this next candle is watch this, it's a small body, but a strong downside wick. Now, this candle is actually, watch this, y'all. this candle is actually not what you think it is. Even though it's a red candle. Because this candle tells us that the buyers stepped in and pushed this all the way back up. The sellers was dominant, but the buyers said, hell no. And they pushed it all the way back up. Now, it still ended red. If you see a candle like this, the candle that comes after this is gonna be super duper important. So this candle is real cool because even though it's red, it tells you that, watch this, even though the red won the fight, it also tells you there was a lot of green people that showed up to the fight and they actually gained some momentum. Watch this. Because you know for a fact, right? Think about it like a sleeve, right? So if I had a sleeve on and I pushed the sleeve down, watch this. In order for me to push the sleeve back up, that means I must have was getting what? Hot, right? So if I start off and push the sleeve down, in order for me to push the sleeve all the way up, I must have was getting hot, which exposed my arm. Think about that like this. So that it's a red candle, so you know that it opened here and it closed here. But at some point in this fight, the sellers pushed this candle all the way down here. So if you see this happens, you understand that the buyers, the only way it is, the buyers push the sleeve all the way back up. And at some point, they actually got it way up here to the top. But the sellers came in along the way and fought. But this tells you that the buyers have now stepped in and they've stepped in aggressively. So the next candle right here, watch this, y'all, may be a doji candle, which as a trader, you want to wait. Why? Because if the next candle is a doji candle and you see this, there's some indecision. So now you want to wait for the next candle, which may be a green candle. The green candle confirms that this candle was actually 100% accurate. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? The reason why, what happens is, this told us that a lot of buyers stepped in and rejected this. The next candle is a doji candle, which is a candle that means, okay, we fighting right here, right? That means sellers in, fighting's in, so that's a stalemate. So now the following candle is the candle that says, what's going on? Does that make sense? What you about to say, Sean?
I was saying, explain the difference. So they look similar, right? But
what?
They both of the candles, right?
Okay, I ain't got to hear yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm still here. No, I'm just saying the next candle, not this candle. I'm just saying the next candle that follows this candle, not this candle, but on the chart, it may be a doji candle, which is saying, hey, because watch this, the sellers still want to defend their territory, and the buyers are saying, hey, we coming to take over. So the next candle may be a indecision candle. So now you need that third candle to give you confirmation on who won that fight.
Could an hourly candle be a doji candle, or
100%.
Are they shorter? All right.
An hourly candle could be a doji candle. A one-day candle could be a doji candle. Yeah, that can come out like that. And a doji candle just means indecision, means nobody really won the fight. So what I've learned on my time, like I don't trade on the dojis. I need to see what's happening, what happens after that, because you need confirmation. You need to be, I like to say, you just need assurance that you're making the right play. You feel what I'm saying? And so this candle, small body candle, strong upper wick, it's the reverse of this one. Right? It says that buyers got this price all the way up, and then the sellers rejected it, and they pushed it all the way back down. And at some point, they pushed it down actually further than it closed. The buyers rejected something right here, but they were overwhelmed by the sellers. So now you need the next candle after this to give you confirmation. So anytime you see a long wick like this, you always want, well, anytime period, But anytime you see a long wick like that, you want to say, hey, this could possibly be a reversal in what was going on. Right? So you want to be like, hey, hold on. If I was bearish, let me wait to see. If I was bullish, let me wait to see. So you want to make sure that the candle after this tells you exactly what you need to know. Now, let's go back to our other candle. Right? Let's go back to our Gravestone doji. Here's why this one, now that we broke that down, here's why this is so important. And this is how this is going to make sense to you. You see this uptrend clearly happening, which tells us buyers are active. How do we know they're active? Because these are some nice size candles, right? They're not slim, right? But also what you see, again, we talking about communication within the candle. Watch this. You see this candle, right? Yo, I'm telling y'all, I've been in it. I've been in it. Watch what I'm about to tell you right here. We know that you need higher lows and higher highs to create an uptrend, right? But here's what's really dope. You see the high of this candle in the middle of the body of the next candle. That shows you that there's real momentum here. Like, it's not just level. You see the high of this candle in the middle of this next candle. Honestly, that is a strong confirmation that this is legit. Now watch what you about to say, Sean. Come on.
Why is that a strong confirmation?
Because I like it. I just mess with Sean. And he testing me, y'all. Y'all just don't know that. He's just trying to make sure I'm on my shit, you hear me? But the reason why is because, watch this, if they'd had another candle, let's say it was on the side of it, but not above it all the way, but maybe 3/4 of the length down, or maybe this was a doji candle, right? Then that still means that uptrend ain't as powerful. Yeah. But when this next candle overrides this candle, that means there's a lot of buyers still confirming this. That means they're going up the ladder, right? That means they're like, oh, we legit. Hey, party. It's popping, right? It's popping over here. So the high of this candle meets the body of this candle. Let me say that again. When this high is in the middle of the body of this next candle, you know buyers are really, really active. Now, here's where the Gravestone doji come in at. You see that the sellers pushed it up, which is what you would expect. But notice something here that's real sweet. The Gravestone doji came in there at a resistance level. This is the candles communicating to us. So because it's at this resistance level, there's previous income or previous data that made this a resistance level. It didn't just become a resistance level out of thin air. So you paid attention and you say, hey, this candle shot up and then the sellers rejected it, right? So this doji is what makes this important. It's not called a Gravestone bearish candle or it's called a Gravestone doji. And what do we say after that? We want to make sure we get what? Confirmation. So we say, hey, hold on, let me make sure. What does the next candle say to us? The next candle came in and did what? Confirmed that the sellers were heavy in motion. So even if you didn't jump on this one, you said, wait, let me see what the next candle do. Now here's my breaking necks rule. That's funny as crap. What you see, just like right here, where you see the middle of this candle here, look how you see where the low of this candle is overtaken by that candle. But this candle breaks the neck of that candle, which solidifies that the sellers have now taken control. Does that make sense? And what we just did was we communicated inside the candle.